So we talked about this yesterday. This is human population growth. This is throughout human history. So remember that down here, when we are doing what kind of lifestyle?
Normal.
Okay, so during which one of the lifestyles? We talked about hunter-gatherer. Yeah, this is before we figured out the whole farming thing. This is before we were raising crops and raising pigs. We were still hunting for everything and gathering food from the wild. Well, then we figure out the farming thing, and lo and behold, the line hops up a little bit. Not much, but we see sort of slow, steady growth until we get to here. And what do we figure out there? Well, we figure out fossil fuels. We figure out industrial machinery. We have the whole industrial revolution. We spend a lot less human energy growing calories, and now our population soars. We suspect that our carrying capacity has increased tremendously because of this. Do you think that so I want you to think, let's actually make a list of countries on the planet you can think of. We've got a pretty good list, and we've got a pretty diverse list, and that's what I wanted. I could have put in, hold on.
Countries. That's crazy.
Oh, there are way more than that.
205,
I'm going to put in Democratic Republic of Congo, and I'm going to put in, what else? Well, we'll leave it there. Oh, we could have put in New Zealand. We could have put in, there's a whole bunch more to choose from. We could have put in Madagascar. Is that a nation? It's an island off. Well, it's an island off the coast of Africa, but my question, I think that they are under the political rule of one of the nations in Africa. So they're off the African coast, and I'm pretty sure they're not an independent nation. I could be wrong, but okay. So we've got a list of countries. Here's my question. Do you think that all of these countries are growing at the same rate?
No.
Okay, so that's fantastic. How could we tell? Okay, so we could look at their growth rate, which is comprised of their what and their what?
Their death rate and their birth rate.
Birth rate minus death rate. Now, here's a question. Their growth rate today, does that tell us what we want to know about how they're going to grow in 50 years or 75 years or 100 years?
No.
Do you think there's a way to do that? Yeah. So let me introduce you to a new kind of graph. And actually, first let me talk about this. So this is human population growth, and this is projected out. So we are currently here, roughly. The blue line are more developed countries. The red line are less developed countries. What does that mean? We're going to get back to the new kind of chart. What does that mean?
We're not all too high.
Well, whoops. Okay, so we've got more developed countries, less developed countries. We're going to leave that alone for a second. Sometimes we talk about industrial versus non-industrial nations. There's a kind of chart that's really useful, and it's this. This is called an age structure diagram. So this takes the population of any country, and you could do the population of the whole planet, but we usually do this country by country. And it breaks it down into age groups. And what percentage of the population is in each age group, or how many million people are in each age group. So you can see you've got 0 to 4, 3 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 29, 30 to 34, 35 to 39, 40 to 44, 45 to 49, 50 to 54. It's 5-year increments all the way up to 100. So let me ask you this. During what years can human females, and we're going to talk about females specifically, it's different for males, reproduce? So that's our reproductive years. That's that block right there. Those are the folks who are going to have the next generation, by and large. So are there more of them than people who they've given birth to? Who did the folks outlined in red give birth to?
People at the bottom.
The people here, the people who are from 0 to 14 years old. Their parents are probably somewhere in those reproductive years. I mean, their parents might be out of them, we don't know. But in general, those folks gave birth to the folks on the bottom of the age structure diagram. Now, what about these folks?
They're the parents of the red.
They're the grandparents, essentially. So these are, they are the parents of the red. These are we call them post-reproductive. Reproductive, and pre-reproductive. I'm going to abbreviate that. Okay, so that gives us a fairly good idea who's capable of, what percentage of the population is capable of having babies, what percentage of the population will be capable of having babies in the future, and what percentage of the population has their baby having years behind them. So now, let's look at this. These are from 4 different countries. And they've got pre-reproductive, so pre, repro, and post. They don't actually show us exact ages, but they just color-coded pre-reproductive, reproductive, and post-reproductive. So I want you to talk with someone else. So I'm going to, Matt, I'm going to have you move over there. Devin, I'm going to have you move over here. So I want you to talk with someone else, and I want you to decide which one of these countries is going to show bigger, faster population growth in the next 50 years. So rank them from, I think this country's population is going to increase at the fastest rate, increase more slowly. This country's population isn't going to increase at all. This country's population is going to shrink. Rank them. Okay. So which country or which diagram shows the most individuals who haven't yet entered their reproductive years? A. Their pre-reproductive population is huge.
But they die off.
Well, they do. Not super fast. Remember, they're going to move through this. This doesn't, okay, this is a good misconception to address. When these folks here they move from 0 to 4 to the next age level, that line moves with them. So what we're saying is we have a larger population under the age of 14 than we do in the reproductive years, and those wide bars stay with them. We'll actually look at one of the U.S. where you can see the baby boomers.
I just meant there's like none at the top.
Populations do tend to diminish because people do die off. Once you get above 90, well, actually, above 75, you start seeing declines in that age group. But this big chunk of folks who haven't hit their reproductive years yet, their reproductive years are still ahead of them. If they get up into those reproductive years and they've survived, they're going to make an even bigger pre-reproductive population when they're having babies. This one is very fast growth. How many of you said that was the fastest growth represented? Good. Is there a population here that's shrinking? D. So D does not have a big population of people in their pre-reproductive years. They haven't, the reproductive population, these guys, haven't even replaced themselves. What's replacement per couple? How many babies do you have to replace you and your partner? 2. 2 is replacement. You have more than 2, your population's growing. You have fewer than 2, your population's shrinking.
So how many
Reproduct. This is a population where people are having lots of babies. 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, how many of you, go ask your grandparents, go ask your great-grandparents if they're around, how many siblings do they have? I can lay you odds that a lot of them had 5, 6, 7 siblings. My grandpa was one of 10. His father was one of 17 born, 11 who survived. That used to be common. 17 born. Yep. So, let's actually look at the countries from which this is drawn. Okay. So, Kenya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia are all experiencing huge growth, rapid growth, big pre-reproductive populations, While on the other end, Germany, Bulgaria, and Hungary are shrinking. If there is no immigration to those countries, their populations are dwindling. They have to have immigration to support their numbers. They're not replacing themselves. Denmark, Italy, and Austria are pretty much at zero growth. They're doing just replacement. They're just replacing themselves. Australia, Canada, the U.S. Are all slow growth right now. So the population that lives here is replacing themselves plus a little bit. I wonder if these, because in the U.S. I know that we tend to have like 1.3 children per couple, which is not replacement, and immigration for a long time has propped up our numbers. So I wonder if that's reflected in this chart. I don't know. It's a question for research. Let's look at one, because you were saying, well, but they die off. Let's look at something quick. So this is the U.S. individually in 2017, and this is the one we started with. There is, and this one doesn't show it as clearly. I guess they've started to die off. So this is what we call Gen X here. That's Gen X. It's probably a lot of your parents. And this was 2017, so this is pretty recent data. Note that the group above them is a little wider. Guess who that is?
Grandparents? No.
Baby boomers.
Oh.
Now, this graph would have been more exaggerated had we looked at one in 1970 because the baby boomers have started to die off. Most of them are in their 60s and 70s now. They're, well, let's see. We usually count them as being born between, 1945 and 1960? Yeah, they've started to pass away. Yeah, because 1945 to 1960 is typically considered baby boom, and then 61 to about 75 is Gen X, that 15-year chunk. So yeah, the boomers are kind of up in there, and they started to decline. If we had looked at a population age diagram for the U.S. in the mid-1950s, we would have seen a huge bar that's the boomers. Now, they didn't replace themselves because the generation after them was a little bit smaller. So they didn't all have their 2 kids. They didn't replace themselves. They didn't more than replace themselves. So we can look at an age structure diagram and figure out how a country is going to grow, if nothing changes, how it's going to grow in the next 50 or 100 years, how it's going to grow in the next few generations. You're going to create some age structure diagrams to compare, okay? So I'll have you just pass these from table to table.